Hey everybody, Tracy Brown here. I'm going to tell you right off the bat that this video probably won't be over 15 minutes long because the rain's coming back in and the neighbors are working on their roof, and this was just the first break I've had in the weather to get outside and do this pretty much all morning. So it's still raining, but it's not to where it feels like you're getting pounded along with me on the roof here. So I've had some questions about set point range and maybe set point theory, and so thought I'd address that very briefly, and then obviously I can continue on in another video if people need more. So I'm going to go out right off the bat and where am I getting in my information, and it's going to be based on a treatment manual that I learned about a long time ago. It's called Reif and Reif, R-E-I-F and Reif, so two people, same last name, that wrote this, and they had a whole section around like body composition and weight changes and all that kind of stuff. And so their research list was really extensive and long. I don't have it anymore. I could probably go try to dig it up and then maybe even scan it for you guys to see if you want to have that. So I'm just not making this stuff up. But honestly, my clinical experience working with clients, it's been pretty accurate, so I trust it. And so here we go. All right, set point range. We all have one. We have we were born with a range in which, when we are basically eating our energy needs and our weight, and we have moderate activity, not like zero activity, but not like, training for sporting events or compulsively exercising. That we're pretty much going to stay in. And it can be, for some people, a 10-pound range. Some people, I think it can be up to a 20-pound range, where depending on their, movement level and the density of certain kinds of foods they eat, they'll be around in that. That's what I see. However, set point gets changed for a lot of reasons, and probably everybody listening to this has had changes and struggles in that because, of the culture we live in. And even in our recovery process and things like that. So I'm just going to run you off a list of things that can raise our set point. There's only basically like one thing that can lower our set point below what we were kind of born with. And the things that change our set point we're going to talk about is, these aren't things that you did anything wrong. It's just life, okay? So for any, and I want you to think about your metabolism. It's not like a static calories in, calories out, as you all know, that impacts your weight. That can be a teeny tiny factor at the beginning of any kind of like food restriction, possibly, or unconscious eating. But then the body really starts to kick in. It's like a thermostat. It wants to maintain its set point range. And it fights to do that until we continue to override that with these other things that I'm going to talk about now. Is the only thing that I've seen that has suppressed somebody's, like lowered somebody's set point, would be drug use. Crystal meth, things like that. So if I'm making up some numbers, this is not directed at any person, any client I've ever had, this is just, I'm making this up. Let's say that your set point range is, your body likes to be 150 to 160. Normal activity, eating a little of everything, eating from hunger and fullness most of the time. That's where your body wants to be, and it wants to defend that with those behaviors. Now, if you were to be using drugs in some kind of way, you could probably lower that. So let's do the opposite, and this is what I think most of us do struggle with, is this idea in culture. I don't know how else to put it. Medical culture, fashion culture, all the other things that have influences around like what's worthy and lovable and acceptable, have told us that no matter, if you want to be, if your set point is 150 to 160, but that BMI says you should be 120, then by goodness, if you just restrict, you can get there, and it's because of your own willpower. Well, the body, it doesn't know or care too much about what the cultural mandates are. It just wants to be at its range so it can optimally function, okay? So what happens is, over time, and especially I see the longer we've been dieting, the more attempts we have, over time, Not for everybody, but for some people that can increase your set point range. Not set point, exact number, but it can impact your range. So again, I say that with such love and gentleness because nobody went into a diet knowing that information and say, let's go on this diet and temporarily, weigh a smaller amount than what I now just have been weighing to this point, knowing that it's not going to last and it's going to make me, if I do this for 40 years, it's probably going to make me weigh more in the long run. Nobody sets out to do that ever. Please don't shame yourself, and nobody's shaming you for that. It's survival biology. It's not your fault. So I just want to put that one out there to you. The longer our dieting history, the more likely it is we can push our set point range higher. And people often think like, okay, I just started intuitive eating and I'm not binging. I'm not eating more than I feel like I need, but why did I gain all that weight back even plus some? Our body's way of preserving getting back to that set point range in the case that you go back on a diet, in the relative future. Okay? And the best that we can do, if you feel like you've overshot what you've ever weighed your entire life, if you continue to try to artificially suppress that, you're going to end up in more of the cycle. So please just hang tight. I can't promise you that it's going to go lower, but I can certainly say that the more stable you can be with your eating and your movement, and you don't have to love where you're at, the less like it is that you're going to continue on that cycle. Okay? So the other things that can raise your set point range, sometimes it happens to people in pregnancy, that they were a certain way and their body just radically hormonally shifted. And, if that's a chronic thing, that should obviously be medically looked at in terms of like, if you're really struggling with hormone balance and that's making your body's ability to want to weigh more, if that's happening more for you, then that needs to be looked at. But for some people, there's nothing they're finding. It's just that your body wanted to weigh 10 or 15 pounds more after you had babies. And I know that's hard to hear. Not everybody likes to hear that. That happens for some people. Not everybody, but some people. Obviously, there's more. And the point of that is that the reason we don't know is because we don't know. Why would one person kind of relatively go back to where they were versus another? That probably has to do with a lot of factors in terms of stress levels, how chronic our stress was before a pregnancy, and what our body feels like it's got to preserve itself away from in the future. It could be that your weight has been suppressed a really long time before the pregnancy, and it kind of bounced up. Could be there's something else going on, and we don't always have the testing or even have the knowledge yet to know why and how come it happens to certain people in certain kind of ways. So I just want to share that, like, it's not that I would ever withhold if I knew. It's just that science doesn't have that all figured out yet. The other things that I've seen that impact set point range, it's like I said, certainly if there's I always mention this to somebody else, that like if people's weights are chronically going up and not stopping, there's something metabolically going on that needs to be addressed. And then the other thing, I've had some clients that need to be on medications to kind of give them a higher quality of life. So whether a person has lupus and they're on long-term steroids, or there's any medications that are stabilizers for things, and without them their quality of life would be much worse. And so people are making those decisions for a trade-off to have a more stable life but weigh a little bit more. Okay, so that's the gist of it. That there are just so many things in our say, even in our recovery process. And it's really important to think about the level of thinking as you're recovering can't really be the kind of thinking that we had before recovering from diets and disordered eating, because that keeps us kind of trapped in the past with that and stuck. It's like, I know it's really hard to let ourselves adjust to either back to where we were before we restricted, or I know a lot of people have been restricting since they were kids and adolescents and teenagers, and so they never had a chance to grow up into the body they would have had, and they do that in adult life, and I know that can feel hard. That happened to me. Scary. I had no clue what I was going to weigh when I was in my 20s. I'd never been there. I'd never been an adult weight, so my body had to do what it had to do, and I had to let that happen to move forward. So, or a lot of people, they've had periods where like, I think this is where my weight wants to be, but I don't really like it. and that chronic trying to hold on, you know, in their 20s and 30s, and maybe some parts of their 40s, they could hang on to a weight that they thought they wanted to be versus what their body wanted to be. But as they got older, because menopause is going to happen, and that's another factor, you know, our set point range can change. In menopause, it does. Most people weigh a little bit more to be able to support hormones that women need for good functioning. So I hope this video was helpful. It doesn't make the information easier. I totally know that's true, that sometimes we have a lot of grieving to do, or making meaning of any of this in our minds about what we think that we did wrong or whatever. And I highly encourage you to be kind and compassionate about that. If we would have known all this information decades ago, none of us probably would have willingly or been more willing to go on a diet, or thought twice about it. Not that it's not their fault, and it's not that, like, you know, any of us chose to have eating disorders. Of course not. Or set out to be chronic dieters. Stuff happened. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. If I missed anything to have questions about, misspoke in any kind of way, again, you know, that's never the intent. And I know these are sensitive topics that I want to address, so you know that you're not the only one that thinks about these things or wonders about them. And you're not the only one that's asking this question, which is why I'm doing the video. So if you're thinking, I wonder if she's made that for me, well, not just you. We think these things and we wonder, and we want to make sense of it all. And it doesn't make the action steps going forward. Maybe it can make it easier for you, and that's why I made this video. Hopefully it's easier for you going forward. So thank you so much. Thanks for watching. Please put your comments, requests for future content. I always love getting those emails. They're really helpful for me. I don't have to rely on all my own inspiration, but I'm always thinking about you all and what might be helpful. So I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.